Alright guys, I am back with my review of WWE's Monday Night Raw for January 6th, 2014. Making progress with these videos. And this one starts off with Ric Flair. And my God, was he awesome here. So Flair comes out, the crowd's really into him, and he gets interrupted by Randy Orton. So Orton comes out and he says he respects Flair for everything he did for him. But then he starts talking about Cena and how he doesn't want to face him at the Royal Rumble. It's not fair. And Flair says just man up and give Cena the rematch. So Orton gets pissed off at Flair. He says that Flair's overrated. And Flair says Orton has this punk attitude he never grew out of. And then Orton wants to fight Ric Flair. So John Cena runs out and he puts over Ric Flair, trying to get the crowd into him, using Flair, obviously. And he says that if Orton wants to fight someone, he can fight him, and Orton just walks off. But this was great stuff. I didn't really care for the Cena stuff too much, but Ric Flair was amazing here. Then we see Daniel Wyatt, the debut of Daniel Wyatt. It's Harper, Rowan, and Daniel Bryan versus Rey Mysterio and the Usos. And Daniel Bryan is wearing a coverall suit like Eric Rowan. And I guess he's Daniel Wyatt now, which doesn't really make any sense. I was listening to the Wrestling Observer and they brought up a great point. Why is he Daniel Wyatt? Eric Rowan has his own last name, so does Luke Harper. Why is he Wyatt? But they had a decent match. Daniel Bryan's in the ring, and then Harper tags himself in and tells Daniel Bryan to get out, and then one of the Usos rolls Harper up for the win. But I like this, and like I said in my review of the previous Raw episode, I still think it's a swerve, and it's just Daniel Bryan trying to outsmart the Wyatt family. But I like it. I think it's a really cool concept. So we find out that the fans can vote for the special referee in Damien Sandow's rematch against the Great Khali. And the choices are Bob Backlund, Arn Anderson, and Sergeant Slaughter. And it sounded to me, judging by the crowd's reaction to each name, that they didn't really give a shit about these guys, which was sad. They never really care about Bob Backlund or Arn Anderson. Sergeant Slaughter was the only one who got at least some type of pop, but even that wasn't anything special. So they walk off, and Kane comes up to Brad Maddox and says that if he keeps trying to get him fired, then no one's going to see or hear from Brad Maddox again. We see Big E Langston walking backstage, and he passes Nikolai Volkov, the $1 Million Man, and IRS, who looks like he hasn't really aged all that much. But then it's Curtis Axel versus Big E Langston. Ryback is on commentary, and I think they're going to set up Big E versus Ryback next, now that he's beat Curtis Axel like 2 or 3 times. I think Big E's going to move on to Ryback, but it sounded like Ryback was airing some legit grievances on commentary here, talking about how Big E's not over, and Michael Cole was like, well, he's won a singles title, you haven't done that, and then Ryback said something like, I'm only 21 months in, give me a couple years, and it sounded like he was legit pissed out there, but Big E wins with the big ending. So it's the Piper's Pit segment with The Shield, and this was really good stuff. So Piper's talking to The Shield, and he says that Ambrose couldn't beat Punk, Rollins couldn't beat Punk, and tonight Reigns faces Punk. And if Reigns can beat him, does that mean he's the strongest member of The Shield and these other 2 guys are holding him back? So The Shield gets in Piper's face, CM Punk runs out with the New Age Outlaws, and they fight off The Shield. And that was it. It was just a fun segment. I really liked this. And then we get Sin Cara versus Alberto Del Rio. And Del Rio finally beats Sin Cara, the new Sin Cara, with a kick to the head. And afterwards he cuts a promo on Batista. Apparently they've been feuding on Twitter. And that's who Batista's going to face when he comes back. Which I think kind of sucks because I want to see heel Batista. But it should also be really cool to see Batista at the Royal Rumble. I'm sure he's going to get an amazing pop. So with Batista making his big return at the Royal Rumble, he's going to have to get eliminated because I don't see him winning the Royal Rumble. So what I think is going to happen is Batista and Del Rio will do the spot where Batista clotheslines him over the top rope and they both go over. That way they can continue the feud and Batista's eliminated. Or Batista will eliminate Del Rio and Del Rio will run back out and throw Batista over the top rope. But we see Daniel Bryan or Daniel Wyatt backstage talking to Harper and Rowan, and he says, "I joined this family because I wanted to be transformed. Let me contribute. How about next week I'll team with you, Harper, or you, Rowan?" And Bray Wyatt walks up and says, "No, next week you're going to team with me." We get Goldust and Cody Rhodes versus the Real Americans, and I thought this was a good match here. It wasn't too short, wasn't too long, it was perfect. Goldust hits the final cut on Jack Swagger for the win. Then backstage we see DDP and Booker T doing yoga, and Ron Simmons walks up and says, "Damn." So it's Damian Sandow versus the Great Khali, who comes out with Ranjin Singh, and the special referee is Sergeant Slaughter. And they kept this very short, which was smart. Khali hits the big chop on Damian Sandow, but Sandow gets a foot on the ropes. Sergeant Slaughter still counts 3, so Sandow's pissed off he lost the match. He pushes Sergeant Slaughter, and Slaughter puts him in the Cobra Clutch. And then Slaughter, Khali, and Ranjin Singh all dance around like a bunch of goofballs. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman come out. And Paul Heyman talks for a very long time. He says Brock's going to face whoever comes out of the Royal Rumble the champion, which I don't think is going to happen. I think he's going to get attacked by The Undertaker, and they're going to build up Brock versus Taker at WrestleMania. And he's going to go after the streak instead of the title, because I don't see Cena beating Randy Orton, and Orton's a heel, so it would make sense. But they talk for a very long time, and Mark Henry comes out. And I was like, what the fuck? Mark Henry's already back? So Brock beats his ass again and breaks his arm. And as he goes to leave, Big Show comes out. And Brock is kind of running from the Big Show. But then he gets in the ring, which I did not expect, and Big Show just tosses him like nothing. And Brock and Heyman leave. So I expect Brock Lesnar to just attack Big Show from behind next week and kill him completely. Lay him out like he did Mark Henry. Then we get the Bellas versus Alicia Fox and Oksana. And Brie Bella misses a missile dropkick off the top, and Oksana covers her for the win. Nothing else to really say about this one. Then we get Too Cool, Rikishi, Grandmaster Sexay, and Scotty 2 Hotty versus 3MB. So now you know why Jerry Lawler really wasn't there. But I did notice that Scotty 2 Hotty looks a lot like Charlie Haas now. And Rikishi sits on Jinder Mahal for the win, and that was it. It was just a fun little nostalgia match. So all the legends come out, led by the Godfather. And Bad News Barrett comes up, and he makes fun of them all. And you could just see it on the legends' faces, like, what the fuck is this? So Mean Gene comes out and talks about the old hotline number, and he introduces the New Age Outlaws. So they come out, and they introduce CM Punk. So it's CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. It was a decent match, but it was really all Punk. I mean, Punk really carried Roman Reigns here. And Punk goes to hit Ambrose off the apron, and Reigns spears him for the win. And afterwards, Jake the Snake Roberts comes out. Punk and the New Age Outlaws fight off the Shield, and Punk hits the GTS on Ambrose, and then Jake the Snake puts the snake on Ambrose, and Ambrose is just smiling the entire time. It was hilarious. And that was the end of Old School Raw. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this show. I loved all the cameos, and you have to give WWE credit. They have their shit together when it comes to the presentation of these Old School Raws. It looked great. So that's my review. Hope you guys liked the video. Leave your thoughts on the show in the comments, and thanks for watching.